Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video I'm going to be making a Melty Bead Butterfly. And so me and my friend had a sleepover, and she made this beautiful butterfly, but it wasn't as big as it wanted to be. So instead of continuing it and finishing it, I'm going to be taking it apart and using two pads instead of one this time to make it fully extent. And so yeah. Also, while we're going to be doing this, if you haven't seen it in the title, we're going to be listening to The Host, an audiobook. And we're going to start from the beginning because I really have not done this before, but I really hope this is cool. Anyway, let's start. There.
Prologue. Inserted. The healer's name was Ford's Deep Waters. Because he was a soul, by nature he was all things good, compassionate, patient, honest, virtuous, and full of love. Anxiety was an unusual emotion for Ford's Deep Waters. Irritation was even rarer. However, because Ford's Deep Waters lived inside a human body, irritation was sometimes inescapable. As the whispers of the healing students buzzed in the far corner of the operating room, his lips pressed together into a tight line. The expression felt out of place on a mouth more often given to smiling. Darren, his regular assistant, saw the grimace and patted his shoulder. "They're just curious, Fords," he said quietly. "An insertion is hardly an interesting or challenging procedure. Any soul on the street could perform it in an emergency. There's nothing for them to learn by observing today." Fords was surprised to hear the sharp edge marring his normally soothing voice. "They've never seen a grown human before," Darren said. Fords raised one eyebrow. "Are they blind to each other's faces? Do they not have mirrors? You know what I mean. A wild human, still soulless, one of the insurgents." Fords looked at the girl's unconscious body laid out face down on the operating table. Pity swelled in his heart as he remembered the condition her poor broken body had been in when the Seekers had brought her to the healing facility. Such pain she'd endured. Of course she was perfect now, completely healed. Fords had seen to that. "She looks the same as any of us," Fords murmured to Darren. "We all have human faces, and when she wakes up, she will be one of us too. It's just exciting for them, that's all. The soul we implant today deserves more respect than to have her host body gawked at this way. She'll already have far too much to deal with as she acclimates. It's not fair to put her through this." By this, he did not mean the gawking. Fords heard the sharp edge return to his voice. Darren patted him again. "It will be fine. The Seeker needs information, and—" At the word Seeker, Fords gave Darren a look that could only be described as a glare. Darren blinked in shock. "I'm sorry," Fords apologized at once. "I didn't mean to react so negatively. It's just that I fear for this soul." His eyes moved to the cryo tank on its stand beside the table. The light was a steady, dull red, indicating that it was occupied and in hibernation mode. "This soul was specially picked for the assignment," Darren said soothingly. "She is exceptional among our kind, braver than most. Her lives speak for themselves. I think she would volunteer, if it were possible to ask her. Who among us would not volunteer if asked to do something for the greater good? But is that really the case here? Is the greater good served by this? The question is not her willingness, but what it is right to ask any soul to bear." The healing students were discussing the hibernating soul as well. Fords could hear the whispers clearly. Their voices were rising now, getting louder with their excitement. "She's lived on 6 planets. I heard 7. I heard she's never lived 2 terms as the same host species. Is that possible? She's been almost everything. A flower, a bear, a spider, a seaweed, a bat, even a dragon. I don't believe it. Not 7 planets. At least 7. She started on the origin. Really? The origin? Quiet, please, Fords interrupted. If you cannot observe professionally and silently, then I will have to ask you to remove yourselves. Abashed, the 6 students fell silent and edged away from one another. Let's get on with this, Darren. Everything was prepared. The appropriate medicines were laid out beside the human girl. Her long dark hair was secured beneath a surgical cap, exposing her slender neck. Deeply sedated, she breathed slowly in and out. Her sun-browned skin had barely a mark to show for her accident. Begin thaw sequence now, please, Darren. The gray-haired assistant was already waiting beside the cryotank, his hand resting on the dial. He flipped the safety back and spun down on the dial. The red light atop the small gray cylinder began to pulse, flashing faster as the seconds passed, changing color. Fords concentrated on the unconscious body. He edged the scalpel through the skin at the base of the subject's skull with small, precise movements, and then sprayed on the medication that stilled the excess flow of blood before he widened the fissure. Fords delved delicately beneath the neck muscles, careful not to injure them, exposing the pale bones at the top of the spinal column. The soul is ready, Fords, Darren informed him. So am I. Bring her. Fords felt Darren at his elbow and knew without looking that his assistant would be prepared, his hand stretched out and waiting. They had worked together for many years now. Fords held the gap open. Send her home, he whispered. Darren's hand moved into view, the silver gleam of an awaking soul in his cupped palm. Fords never saw an exposed soul without being struck by the beauty of it. The soul shone in the brilliant lights of the operating room, brighter than the reflective silver instrument in his hand. Like a living ribbon, she twisted and rippled, stretching, happy to be free of the cryotank. Her thin, feathery attachments, nearly 1,000 of them, billowed softly like pale silver hair. Though they were all lovely, this one seemed particularly graceful to Ford's deep waters. He was not alone in his reaction. He heard Darren's soft sigh, heard the admiring murmurs of the students. Gently, Darren placed the small, glistening creature inside the opening Fords had made in the human's neck. The soul slid smoothly into the offered space, weaving herself into the alien anatomy. Fords admired the skill with which she possessed her new home. Her attachments wound tightly into place around the nerve centers, some elongating and reaching deeper to where he couldn't see, under and up into the brain, the optic nerves, the ear canals. She was very quick, very firm in her movements. Soon, only one small segment of her glistening body was visible. Well done, he whispered to her, knowing that she could not hear him. The human girl was the one with ears, and she still slept soundly. It was a routine matter to finish the job. He cleaned and healed the wound, applied the salve that sealed the incision closed behind the sole, and then brushed the scar-softening powder across the line left off.
Alright, so that is the end of part 1, and I have cleared the entire butterfly off. So I will be doing a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4, continuing until I finish the butterfly, and maybe I will continue with another arts and crafts until I finish the book, The Host, by Stephanie Meyer, just so you know. Now I will be doing part 2, and that's the end of this video. Subscribe, like, and comment down below, please.